they said. Take down the soccer mom first. But they didn't know. She was Ghost Circuit Recon. Put everyone on the ground. Start with the soccer mom. The man didn't shout. He spoke like he'd said it 100 times before, with the flat calm of someone who expected no resistance. What he didn't know was that the woman calmly holding a shopping list in aisle 6 once ended a war before breakfast. Nora Vance looked like every other mom in Elmsworth. Gray athletic top, ponytail, sneakers, a tote bag with birthday candles sticking out the side. She smiled at the cashier, nodded at neighbors. She didn't look like someone who had dragged wounded men through the burning canyons of Qarasi Province. She didn't look like someone who'd run covert recon under mortar fire, or walked a razor-thin ridgeline with 51 lives depending on her every step. But that's who she used to be. 15 years ago. Nora Vance wasn't a mother. She was Lieutenant Commander Vance, Ghost Circuit Recon, 5th Tactical Unit. She didn't bake cakes. She built chaos. Then came Caleb. 10 fingers, 10 toes. One promise: I'm done with war. I choose peace, and for a decade. She kept that promise. Small town, local accountant work, school bake sales. She still woke up at 5 a.m., ran 5 miles, did push-ups, studied maps. But no one ever noticed, not even Caleb. To him, she was just Mom, the one who made dinosaur-shaped pancakes and helped with math homework. That afternoon, she was buying ingredients for his 10th birthday cake, chocolate fudge, baking powder, milk. She even double-checked the candle count. Everything was normal, except her instincts. She felt it the second she stepped into Lunar Grove Market. The air was too quiet, too many eyes looking nowhere, too much stillness. Then came the shoes. 3 men, each walking like they weren't there to shop. Heavy steps, tactical rhythm, matching black boots. One paused just a little too long near the loading zone. Nora's spine tensed, but her face didn't change. She adjusted her tote bag and moved casually into the dairy section. Milk in one hand, exit in her mind. She didn't reach for a weapon, didn't go for a phone. She just watched, measured, because something was off. They weren't here for money. They were scanning the crowd, looking for someone. And then one of them turned, locked eyes with her. He spoke into a concealed mic, then pointed straight at her. You, the blonde. Stand up, hands where I can see them. She smiled softly, then slowly raised her hands. But in her head, the math was already running. 3 armed men, 6 exits, 12 civilians, 1 god-awful mistake, 500 words. Tactical suspense, military storytelling, fair use compliant. Nora Vance didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She just picked up a carton of oat milk, scanned the expiration date, and walked 2 steps to the left. But her mind, it had already mapped the entire store. 15 years in Ghost Circuit Recon doesn't leave you. Environmental awareness, threat assessment, intuitive alarm systems. They were always there, quiet, invisible, locked into the rhythm of her breath. 3 men, 1 near the produce section, 1 near the bakery, and the 3rd pretending to scroll his phone in the entryway. Same boots, same posture, eyes that didn't wander, eyes that searched. Her left hand clenched the grocery list just slightly, not in fear, in calculation. Then it happened. Everybody down, nobody move. 3 men moved in perfect formation, weapons drawn, suppressors, tactical gloves. This wasn't a robbery, it was a mission. Screams erupted. A father threw himself over his toddler. An elderly man clutched a display shelf. Someone knocked over a juice stand near checkout lane 2. And still, Nora didn't panic. She didn't crouch. She stood still. The man giving orders was tall, 6'3", masked, Eastern European accent, commanding presence. His voice cut like steel. Stay calm. Nobody plays hero. We're not here to hurt you, unless you make us. That was Ivan Krell, ex-Zalek Commandos, once a ghost operative in Eastern Europe. Now, mercenary. His partner's Bogdan, built like a bull, and Ilya quiet, wiry, with an unsettling calm. Their formation, spacing, communication, too disciplined for petty theft. And Nora knew it. She watched Ivan's left hand tap his earpiece twice. Covert comms, external handler. Meanwhile, Ilya scanned faces systematically. They were searching for someone. That's when Ivan's gaze froze, locked on her. You, blonde, with the milk. She stayed still, then slowly raised both hands. Ilya flanked right. Bogdan closed off the deli exit. Ivan stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Stand up. You look like the type we're looking for. Soccer mom, right, harmless, disposable. Nora's voice was calm. Please, I'm just shopping for my son's birthday. Ivan smirked. Oh, of course you are. Fudge cake. Was it? So sweet. We'll make sure he remembers this one. But what Ivan Krell didn't know was that tucked inside Nora's purse was a compact, untraceable emergency transponder, hardwired years ago to ping a dormant protocol called Whisper Line. Only one other person in the world could receive that signal, and if he did, the storm would come. She didn't move for it. Not yet, because her brain was moving faster than any bullet. 3 hostiles, 13 civilians, 2 viable exits, 1 shot at turning this around. She just needed the right moment, and Ivan Krell, he'd just made his second mistake. Voiceover. Look, sweetheart. Ivan Krell stepped closer, slow and deliberate. You're our insurance now. If any hero cop shows up, you're the first to go. Understand? Nora nodded, eyes wide. I understand. Please don't hurt me. My son's waiting for me. Her voice was soft, her breathing measured, but her fingers already inside her purse, across the store. Ilya and Bogdan moved methodically through the registers, scooping bills into black duffel bags. Professional, mechanical, cold. Meanwhile, Ivan kept his eyes on Nora. She didn't flinch, didn't break character. I'm just turning off my phone, she said gently, so no one calls. But inside her purse, her fingers didn't find a phone. They found something else, something cold, small, matte black, a device she hadn't touched in 8 years. A last resort transponder. It didn't make noise, didn't blink, didn't exist on any public network. But 312 meters away, on a desk inside a decommissioned logistics trailer behind Camp Endura, a screen flashed red. Whisper Line activated. Nora closed her purse. Calm, silent. Ivan tilted his head. What are you doing? Turning off the phone. She repeated, but something in her had shifted, slightly, subtly, fatally. Her weight rested forward now, feet planted wider, hands in a looser, combat-ready stance. Ivan saw it. He was trained, and he recognized exactly what he was seeing. You, who are you? He asked, suspicion sharpening. Nora met his gaze without blinking. I'm just a mother. Ivan stepped back. No, you're not. Your stance, your posture, that's military. That's training. Just then, another voice broke through. Ivan Krell. A man stood slowly from behind the frozen food display. Store manager Henry Maddox. 67 gray beard, clean posture, Vietnam-era recon. I've waited 20 years for this. Ivan froze. Henry Maddox. A grim smile pulled at his lips. Well, hell, took long enough. Nora's eyes darted between them, calculating. She knew that name. And then it clicked. This wasn't a robbery. It was a targeted extraction. And Henry Maddox wasn't just a manager. He was the father of Alec Dorn, the covert ops specialist who had saved Nora's life in Qarasi. Back in 2008, this was revenge. Ivan raised his pistol toward Henry. Where's Alec? Where's your son? Henry didn't blink. I don't know. Liar, Ivan roared. He exposed us. 3 of my men died because of him. Nora's chest tightened. This wasn't random. This was a trap. And somehow she had walked right into it, or had she? Ivan turned to her again. You're Nora Vance, aren't you? Her blood ran cold. How do you know that name? Ivan smirked. Qarasi. 2008. We were hunting you. Alec protected you, and now you're here. With him. In the same town. Perfect. His gun turned back toward Henry. We killed 2 birds today. Henry looked at Norah. 8 years ago. My son told me something, he said softly. She's the best warrior I've ever seen. Henry faced Ivan. You made one mistake. Krell. Ivan sneered. What mistake? Henry's voice dropped to a growl. You took the wrong woman hostage, and then Norah moved. You picked the wrong woman to threaten. Henry Maddox barely finished the sentence before Nora Vance exploded into motion. 15 years of Black Ops muscle memory roared back to life. This wasn't panic. This was precision. 0 seconds. Ivan Krell never saw the first move. Norah stepped into his space with brutal economy, struck his left wrist with a downward chop. The pistol spun from his hand and clattered into the soup display. 3 seconds. Ivan reached for the weapon, but Norah stepped forward, bam elbow to the bridge of his nose. He staggered backward, groaning, blood blooming between his fingers. 10 seconds. Bogdan, across the register lane, raised his weapon. Too slow. Norah dropped low, hooked his ankle with a sweep that slammed him down flat. He fired wild mist. She pounced. 1 twist, 1 disarm, 1 elbow to the temple. 20 seconds. Gun disabled, threat neutralized. 2 down. Ilya, cold and calculating, aimed from behind the dairy cases. He fired once. Norah was already gone. 22 seconds. Milk exploded across the aisle in a white burst. Screams echoed. Civilians huddled beneath overturned carts. The floor was slick. The lights above flickered from gunfire. 30 seconds. Norah crawled behind the meat counter, grabbed a metal tray, slid it across the floor. Distraction. 32 seconds. Ilya glanced. That was enough. 36 seconds. She rose in a diagonal rush, a blur of zigzag motion trained to defeat predictive firing models. Her eyes locked in. No hesitation. 40 seconds. Wrist lock. Gun twist. She slammed his forearm into the shelf, popped the clip, ejected the round. Then a single elbow strike to the jaw. Ilya dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. 45 seconds. 3 men down. None dead. 50 seconds. Nora Vance stood still, chest rising, breath tight. The echoes of violence still hung in the air like static. Aisle 6 was wreckage, cans, glass, milk, blood. But every civilian alive. Somewhere behind the checkout lanes. A toddler started crying. A mother whispered, "It's over. You're okay." People began to breathe again. Henry stepped forward, his voice soft, almost reverent. "You're still the same Nora Vance. Alec always said you were lightning in a storm." She wiped her brow with the back of her wrist. Her hands were shaking now, not from fear, but from the aftershock of restraint. "I didn't plan this." "No," he said, nodding toward the unconscious bodies. They were looking for Alec. "You being here?" He chuckled, almost in disbelief. That was a coincidence, but a damn good one. Sirens howled in the distance, getting closer. Norah reached into her jacket and pulled out her phone, typed fast. "Alec, your father's safe. Operation neutralized. Norah," 3 minutes later. A response came. "Thank you, again. I owe you. Always." She smiled, but only for a second. Because the last time she and Alec had fought side by side, it was a firefight in Qarasi. 6 men down, 2 of them barely breathing. She'd dragged Alec through sand and fire. He'd carried her out of a collapsed building 6 months later. They never talked about it. But war doesn't build friendships. It forges them. In federal custody, Ivan Krell would sit alone staring at concrete walls 3 times a week. He'd ask the same question. Who was she? No one answered. And Nora Vance. She never gave interviews. She never posted online. She simply returned to the quiet rhythm of her life before retiring. Henry Maddox asked to see her one last time on the bench outside Lunar Grove Market. he said. Alec told me about you, Qarasi, the dust storm, the ambush. Nora nodded, eyes distant. That's over. Henry, maybe. He replied, but yesterday you didn't just save me. You saved a store full of families. That's not the past. That's who you still are. She didn't respond. Some truths didn't need acknowledgement. Later that evening, her phone buzzed. Alec Dorn had sent a message. That wasn't coincidence. You were placed there for a reason. Some people are just born to stand in front of others when the bullets fly. Nora read it twice, then locked her phone, because even after all these years, the soldier in her wasn't gone. She just wore better disguises now. A week later, Caleb's birthday party filled the backyard with laughter and frosting. That night, he asked, "Mom, why are you smiling like you won a game?" Nora tousled his hair. "Because sometimes life gives you surprises. And sometimes they're good ones." "What kind of surprise?" She paused. "When you're older." "I'll explain. For now, just eat your cake." Caleb grinned, but he noticed something strange. A glint in her eye, like she'd fought a dragon, and come home quiet. The next morning, she returned to Lunar Grove Market. Not for battle, for snacks, for normalcy. She walked the same aisle, the same spot where Ivan had pointed his gun. Nora paused. For 2 seconds, she stood still, remembered every breath of that 50-second war. Then she smiled and kept walking, in her purse, beneath a pouch of trail mix. The whisper line device was still there, untouched, waiting. Because real strength doesn't pose, it watches, it waits. It acts only when no one else will. 1 month later, a black SUV idled across the street from her house. It never approached, never rolled down a window. But it stayed for 3 days. Nora never called it in. She just noted the plate, studied the tread pattern in the gravel, and moved on. 2 months later, the school principal called. "Ms. Vance, we're thinking of adding a school security consultant. Would you consider helping us? I'm just a part-time accountant." She replied, but after hanging up, she stared at the wall for a long moment. Who had suggested her? 3 months later, a local newspaper ran a story. "Mystery woman stops armed robbery." No names, no photos, just speculation. Nora folded the paper quietly because the story was a lie. The FBI knew who she was. So did Alec, and maybe that was enough. Some heroes don't want headlines. Some heroes shouldn't have them. That night, as she and Caleb watched TV, the news anchor read the verdict: 3 men found guilty in the grocery store hostage case. The 4th remains in critical condition. Caleb turned. "Mom, weren't you shopping there that day?" Nora didn't blink. "No, I was home." He narrowed his eyes. "You sure?" She smiled and kissed his cheek. "Maybe we already know the woman who stopped them. We just don't realize it." 4 months later, she returned to that aisle again. Same cart, same list, same silence. Nora paused, not for drama, not for reflection, just long enough to remind herself that if the world ever needed her again, she'd be ready. Because real courage isn't loud. It's quiet, precise, invisible until it strikes. And the most dangerous warrior in the room often looks like someone's mom,